Welcome, everybody, to 52 Living Ideas. Tonight, we'll be continuing the Analects. We'll be hopefully completing chapter 15, book 15. And then as far as just getting started, we'll be doing it our usual way, where we'll have one or two readings of your favorite translations of the Analects. And then we'll go to Jason. After that, we'll open it up for comments. We ask that you keep your comments close to the verses that we're actually covering at that moment in time. And then at the end, we'll open it up to more of a organic discussion about the Analects and our takeaways. So our hope is to get through chapter 15 this evening. We will also be having next week a review where we can actually have each person can bring their favorite verses, and we'll have a discussion about how a summary of the first 15 books of Confucius, the Analects. So with that, would anybody like to read their version of the Analects?
So let's start from 32, 33, 34.
Yeah, I mean, I can. You want to start, Peng?
Yes, I can read the Eno. Do you want to read your own version?
Yeah, I can read mine as well. I just had to pull it up for a minute.
Okay. Do you have it? You can start.
Yeah. The master said, the object of the superior man is truth. Food is not his object. There is plowing, even in that there is sometimes want. So with learning, okay, I'm stuttering on that word, may be found in it. The superior man is anxious lest he should not get truth. He is not anxious lest poverty should come upon him. Number 33, the master said, when a man's knowledge is sufficient to attain and his virtue is not sufficient to enable him to hold, whatever he may have gained, he will lose again. When his knowledge is sufficient to attain and has virtue enough to hold fast, if he cannot govern with dignity, the people will not respect him. When his knowledge is sufficient to attain and he has a virtue enough to hold fast, when he governs also with dignity, yet if he tried to move the people contrary to the rules of propriety, full excellence is not reached. Number 34, the master said, the superior man cannot be known in little matters, but he may be entrusted with great concerns. The small man may not be entrusted with great concerns, but he may be known in little matters. Thank you.
Okay, I now read the translation by Professor Robert Eno, 15.32. The master said, the Junzi makes plans for the sake of the Tao, not for the sake of eating. Plowing, there is a starvation in it. Study, there is a reward in it. The Junzi worries about the Tao, not about poverty. 15.33. The master said, if one's knowledge is adequate for it, but one does not possess the run needed to preserve it, though one gets it, one will surely lose it. If one's knowledge is adequate for it and one possesses the run needed to preserve it, if one is not solemn in dealing directly with them, the people will not show respect. If one's knowledge is adequate for it and one possesses the run needed to preserve it, and one is solemn in dealing directly with the people, if one initiates action that does not accord with Li, it will not yet be good. 15.34. The master said, the Junzi does not accept being known for petty talents, but accepts receiving great burdens. The small man does not accept receiving great burdens, but accepts being known for petty talents.
Thank you, Quan. Go ahead, Jason.
Amon.
I'll let you share your screen, and I will read from Book 15, verse 32. The master said, "A junzi pursues the Tao, not food. If he farms, he may still be hungry. If he learns, he may be hired by the government. A junzi worries about the Tao, not about poverty." 1533. The master said, "If you have the wisdom to reach it, but cannot maintain it with Ren, even though you possess it, eventually you will lose it. If you have the wisdom to reach it and maintain it with Ren, but you don't manage it with dignity, people won't respect you. If you have the wisdom to reach it, maintain it with Ren, and manage it with dignity, but you don't act in accordance with Li rituals, it is still not perfected." 1534. The master said, "A junzi can not be known for petty matters, but can take responsibility for great matters. A small man cannot take responsibility for great matters, but can be known for petty matters."
Yeah, thank you, Amon. Let me see. 32. I think my this translation is a little bit than others. Basics, the master said, a junzi. I just try to make it logically sound. So a junzi pursue Dao, not food. Okay, which match with a junzi worry about Dao, not poverty. So the sentence in between is a little bit strange if we don't get the tone. So if he farm, he may still be hungry. So that means if you doing as a farmer, you have the risk of famine. But if you learn, you have opportunity to work for the government. I think that's Confucius' tone on that. But you may have a different understanding on that. But that's what I try to do on chapter 32. Let me jump to chapter 34. Chapter 34 is a very typical I call it the Confucian logic. Okay, basically you will do junzi can do A but not B, and small man can do B but not A, something like this. So here it's total just the contrast, right? A junzi cannot be known for petty matters, okay, the small things you consider, but can take great responsibility. And the small man just opposite, right? So it cannot be responsible for important things, but only be known for small things, like some skillful thing and some twist. Okay, so that's the small man to do it. 33, when we read it, we may feel a little bit lost. So I try to organize in the way, if you try to read this one, basics, this logic is a little bit mouthful, but if we look at it this way, 3 keywords we try to understand. Wisdom, right? He talked about you need, if you only have a wisdom but without Ren, so Ren is important, right? If you have no Ren, you will lose it, right? If you have a wisdom and you have the Ren, but you don't manage it with dignity, then people don't respect you. If you have everything, right? You have a wisdom, you maintain it with Ren, manage it with dignity, but you don't follow by the rituals, then it's still not good. So if we organize it to this way, you want to be good, you need to have wisdom first, right? Then you need to have Ren, right? And then you need to manage with dignity. Then you have to follow it by rituals. Then you will become perfect. That's Confucius is talking about. So if you look at about wisdom, is your own knowledge. Ren is your personal quality. Then dignity is talk about your attitude, right? And then finally, the ritual, and we can understand as social aspect, then everything will be perfect. That's Confucius try to tell everyone what to have your job well done. That's what I need to say, and Amon.
Thank you, Jason. I want to remind everybody that these three are sort of in the vein of the ones that preceded it that I refer to as the anti-Taoist verses. The previous one was the master talking about fasting, going without sleep in order to meditate, and that was wasted time, which was kind of a direct assault on Taoist practices. So I want to give you an image to go with these three verses, and it's a little bit of a stereotype, but once upon a time, there would be Taoist monks who would wander their way out of the mountains, carrying bundles of herbs that they had spent however long they were in hermitage collecting. And they would come off the mountain avarice for secular life for a bit. So they'd sell their herbs, and then they'd go and they'd gorge themselves on food, women, and drink until they were a slovenly mess before crawling back up into the mountains to return to their retreat. With that image in mind, these chapters, verses, they hit a little bit closer the mark of what's the criticism here? Why the criticism here? The Junzi pursues the Tao, not food. Yeah, hungry monk wanders off the mountain wanting to fill his belly. That's not wisdom. That's selfishness. And what his argument, what his sort of undergirding argument, Confucius, is that that sort of indulgence is transient, that the nourishment of learning, of applying yourself, is an enduring kind of nourishment that a Junzi actually values. They don't worry about the Tao. They don't worry about being one with the Tao. They worry about instituting the Tao and not about poverty. 33, Jason's right. The logic here is sort of a build. If you have X but not Y, this is the cost. If you have X and Y but not Z, this is the cost. And so once again, wisdom but no concern for fellow man, you'll lose whatever it is you're gaining. Wisdom and concern for fellow man, but no dignity. You don't straighten your robes. You look like a slob. You're sporting an unkempt beard. I'm really stereotyping the Taoist. I almost want to show you the picture on my wall. You don't get respect. You got all of these things going for you, but you still haven't mastered rituals. Well, this is good, but it's not perfected yet. That's better. It's just not perfected. And so there is work still to be done. In the Confucian schema, always there's more polishing and grinding one can do. And lastly, known in petty matters, but take responsibility for great matters. You should be above reproach. You should not be known for the gossip you do, for the body poetry you read when you are sitting around with peers. You should be seen as above reproach. But because you are, people will respect you and entrust you enough to be responsible for very important things. The small man can't be entrusted with important things, but they will be known for these minor behaviors, dalliances, and even minor victories, one could say. 34 kind of reminds me of my expression for a great deal of middle management and bureaucracy, the petty tyrant. I think Confucius is saying the junzi is not a petty tyrant. The junzi keeps the large in mind.
Thank you, Amon and Jason. So now we will open it up to comments for anybody who wants to share their thoughts on 33, 32, 33, and 34. Does anybody, I mean, just a really quick question, this distinction between intellectual and moral virtue that was made in 32, I believe. You know, how does Confucius actually make a distinction between those two? I mean, I have thoughts, but anyway, Jason or Amon, you don't have any.
So you are talking about the wisdom and the moral?
Yeah.
Okay, my quick answer would be Confucius would see moral are more important. Wisdom.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my answer. You know?
But aren't they intertwined? That's kind of where I was kind of going. Like one begets the other.
But depend on how you look at the wisdom. Okay, in Chinese word Confucius, I think Mark asked on chat what's the word for wisdom.
I was actually working on that because of Mark's question in the chat, but
please,
it's zhi.
Zhi, right? Zhi,
Yeah.
And the zhi, again, you can translate same. You can translate as wisdom. You can translate as knowledge. Okay, so I think Confucius is more concerned about knowledge instead of wisdom. Okay, so but what? Yes, but I translate as wisdom because I think that's another big subject, you know, because this word have these two meanings. Okay, so I do see Confucius. That of course that could be just my personal view. I always see Confucius see moral is always more important than knowledge, so or wisdom, because if you read on the 33, Confucius talk about if you have wisdom, right, but you cannot maintain it with ren, so that means ren is more important than wisdom. Then he talked about if you have wisdom and the ren, you need dignity. Okay, in Chinese word, if you zhuang, that means your attitude. Okay, and that bring up another layer of morality. Then he talked about ritual. Okay, that's on the social aspect of your moral behavior. So in my understanding, you need some knowledge to start to do something. Of course, you have no knowledge, you cannot do anything. That's sure. Okay, but moral are more important in Confucius' point of view. Yeah.
So knowledge is necessary, not sufficient.
Knowledge is necessary, but knowledge you can, or if you have the morality, you have the right attitude, you always can learn. That's a Confucius thinking. And I talk about this because in the Song dynasty, which is a northern Song, which is about the 10th century, there the royal court has argued because during that time, the Chinese government start to have a civil exam to pick the right people to work for government. So they have the argument. Use today's language. If I want to hire an accountant, should I test on his skill or her skill of accounting, or test on his morality? The answer is the winner side test on the morality, because if you don't have the accounting knowledge, you can learn later, but you lack of moral, or moral sense, you cannot learn. Okay. So that's the argument. Thousands years, 1500 years later. That's why I have this kind of understanding and also read from the text. I always feel Confucius say morality are more important than wisdom or knowledge. Of course, that's my reading, and then I'm not sure anybody have a different opinion or not, but that's my reading.
Thank you, Jason. Amon.
I think that there's a simple way to make the difference between chu and chu, because it's two different characters pronounced at the first tone and at the fourth tone, but it's precisely the lexical distinction between knowledge as intellectual powers and knowledge as wisdom. In the first chu, the chu, as has been written in the chat, you have on the left side the symbol for an arrow, shu, and on the right side, the symbol for a mouth, cow. So chu, in the sense of intellectual powers, is the arrow and the mouth, the arrow meaning your skill in terms of movements, your skill in physical movement, and the mouth is your skill in verbal capacities. Okay, so the both skills together is the inferior intellect. Chu, pronounced at the fourth tone, also have the arrow and the mouth, but under the arrow and the mouth, you have the sun. Okay, so the sun is the sun of the presence of beauty, goodness, and truth, or if you want, of Yi, Ran, and Tao. So when your intellect, your inferior intellect, the second stage of the epistemological development, if I come back to my favorite intellectual concept of the hexagram, because once again, the hexagram, the 6 lines symbolizing the epistemological development, if it is not translated in your true behavior, it is just an object of inferior intellectual construction. But if it is truly developed in your everyday life and it is embodied by you, it is no longer a bookish concept, it is your existential reality. And then the sun of the absolute, the sun of the presence of the timeless form is there, and that's chu at the fourth tone. Okay, the arrow, the mouth, and the sun. Once again, and the paragraph 15.34 is exactly addressing the problem. Or I don't know if it's a problem, but rather the reality of the difference between the intellect and wisdom. And the intellect is the difference between what Plato called episteme. Okay, episteme is the Greek concept corresponding to the upper trigram, versus doxa, which is the Greek equivalent to the lower trigram. Once again, those are only bookish concepts, but those bookish concepts, if you have role models helping you to embody them in real life, it means the combination or the integration of the upper trigram and the lower trigram, of doxa and episteme, if we use the Greek concepts. And 15.34 is addressing that exactly. The master said, the Chunzi does not accept being known for petty talents. Okay, that is intellect or other things. Okay, you can be good at dance, you can be good at charioteering, you can be good at archery. Those are petty talents. It doesn't mean that we don't need to develop them. We have to develop them. But those are petty talents. There is a hierarchy. But accept receiving great burdens. It means that accept to develop beauty, goodness, and truth, so to be worthy of great responsibilities. The small man does not accept receiving great burdens because he did not develop beauty, goodness, and truth, and he would not be capable anyway, and accept being known for petty talents, for example, to be a good dancer, a good singer, which are not bad things, okay? A good dancer, a good singer are perfectly honorable, but those are talents and not wisdom. And I will not develop in long because I don't want to talk too long, but 15.33 is exactly the practical explanation of it, okay? In the sense that we can imagine the guy at 15.33 receiving an office or receiving a land to govern. So he would need precisely more than petty talents, even if petty talents are useful and you have to develop them, but they would not be enough for you to be truly good in an office or for ruling a land. So here I stop here.
Thank you, Quan. Great comments. Yeah, no, and I was talking about 33, just to make a quick correction when I was making my comment a little bit earlier, not 32. So with that,
excuse me. Here I have a question. Okay, so probably Amon or Quan. I translated the 33 as if you have the wisdom to reach it. In Confucius' time, there's no there's two words, right? 知 and 智. Okay, so two words. But during that time, there's no only have one word. In Confucius, in Analects, there's no. So we don't know. The word is using is for 知, which is we can easily say it's knowledge. 智, which we can say is wisdom. So we have no way to tell only from the context. So question would be probably on the 33 should translate as knowledge instead of wisdom. So that's something. So just a thought. Yeah.
Well, Jason, the Greek have the same problem. Okay, so knowledge.
The dichotomy is a little bit different, but
yes,
yeah, and the Chinese is more simple. Probably only this word for the Greek words for like episteme, doxa, techno, phonesis, Sophia, probably all in the same words, as 知 during Confucius time.
Yes, but forgive me, Jason, just a question of common sense. The paragraph is crystal clear. Okay, he is saying.
You think that's a 知 or 智?
When knowledge in English, okay, I will limit myself to English. Okay, knowledge has the advantage of having an open semantic field. Okay, because when you talk about knowledge, it can be the lower knowledge of the intellectual knowledge of the higher knowledge of wisdom. So it's the open field of the semantic field of knowledge. And here, when I speak about common sense, if you read something like the context of the paragraph, for me, it's clear that Confucius is making the opposition between the lower knowledge and the higher knowledge. I think that the context allow us to attribute which two is the lower knowledge and which two is the higher knowledge. Here, we have to make a hermeneutic word, meaning a word of interpretation. But I have the overbearing pretension to say that the paragraph is clear. Okay, there's no confusion possible when Confucius is making allusion to the petty talents, is the small knowledge, and when he speaks about the higher wisdom, even if it's the same character, my overbearing pretension that is the context is clear enough. But I stop here.
So I'm talking about 33, not 34. So
yeah, but 33 too. 33 too. Because
the 33 is a small knowledge that you are talking about.
Well, if one's knowledge is adequate for it and one possesses the run needed to preserve it, if one is not solemn, etc., here there can be interpretation because we know that the run is higher. That's for sure. Okay. So if one's knowledge is adequate for it, but one does not possess the run, meaning that that chu is probably on the run. So that chu must be the number 2 chu and not the number 6 chu. Because if the chu of the fourth tone with the son of the absolute is the number 6 chu, meaning the chu that is above run. So he must allude to the chu which is the inferior chu and not the chu of high wisdom. Because if you have the chu of high wisdom, it means that you also have run, okay? Because let's not forget that you have to see e run and chu as and unity. And if you have run, it doesn't mean that you have chu of wisdom. But if you have chu of wisdom, it means that you have run and you have e too. So here, I would hypothesize that the context is clear enough that he was speaking of the chu that is on the run, and the chu which is on the run is the chu of number 2.
Okay,
So really quickly, let's go.
another...
Let's just keep going. Right now, we'll come back to that because I think that this is actually a worthwhile discussion, because it gets to the heart of what it means to translate something, and so like what the intentions were and how they were noted. I think that this is and we had this discussion last week with Justice, to be quite honest.
But
I mean, exactly
Joe,
the same thing, so.
That's hermeneutics is one of my pleasure. That's why I come back in every week.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, too. I agree.
That's the pleasure of hermeneutics and of interpretation.
Nick.
Yeah, just quickly on your question on the verse 33. The way he phrased it is conjunctive, meaning you need all those elements in order to get things to work. But the way he phrases suggests a hierarchy of different elements of virtue. And then obviously verse 34 kind of validate that you know, ideally you need all those elements in order to make things work, like knowledge, you know, your wisdom, your you know, virtues, whatever. But if you have to choose somehow, you know, if you are forced to choose, then the verse 34 says, well, look, you know, teach the little knowledges of little things, but you know, be right on great stuff. Yeah.
Paul.
Yeah, I'm on all the same track here, so maybe we'll return to it later, but I'm thinking about the hierarchy, and I'm thinking about if this means that if you have the thing at the top of the hierarchy, you actually do have something. It's incomplete in some ways, but you have something. But if you have something lower in the hierarchy, then you got nothing, almost nothing. And I would mainly look at ritual, which I think also in our modern world, again, what is the meaning of ritual? What is the translation? But in our modern world, we tend to minimize it. And we sort of laugh at like the old English royalty rituals, and we make fun of ritual more than embrace it now. And in a way, we might be right, according to Confucius, because it's empty without the rest of the hierarchy. But if it's all just and, then each one has value. So I'm just drawing that distinction between hierarchy and the implications of it.
Thank you for that, Paul. That's actually an interesting point. Hopefully we can maybe explore that a little bit more deeply later. We'll go to Mark.
Thanks, Joseph. I thank everyone for putting those Chinese characters in, and my original question was going to be based on what Quan had said about the first tone versus the fourth tone. If we could tell from this text, and then Jason came in right away and said, no, we can't tell just from the text whether there was a first or fourth tone that was meant. I'm just wondering if, thinking about the relationship about I know maybe it was Paul or someone else who said that they were additive, maybe Jason. I think that Jason, not Jason, but well, the other two, Nick had talked about them being additive. But I think, Jason, you are trying to indicate that these aren't just additive, but they somehow stand in a certain relationship to each other. I'm trying to figure out what exactly that sort of structure is, that you have this, the Z, I don't know if I'm saying that right, the Ren, the Zhuang, or
Zhuang.
what?
Yeah, you are right. Zhuang, that's correct.
Oh, okay. And then Li.
Mhm.
And what kind of a constellation, like those geodomes that Joe leads the talks about, the geodesics, and how these, it makes me think about Plato's four virtues in the Republic, and how they stand in a relationship within the soul, and they each have a certain function. And you were trying to indicate that Ren was like a quality, and that the Zhuang was like an attitude. So they all have their own role to play in completing this structure, perhaps.
Yeah, that's thank you, Mark. That's my interpretation. Let's put this way. There's four words here, right? 知, and which we call it the wisdom or knowledge. And the second is 人, and we talk about 1,000 times about 人. 13, we talk about 庄. Okay, that means dignity. It's hard to say. Your attitude. Okay, seriousness. Okay, and the last one is ritual. Okay, so just like Michael, right? Michael or Paul talk about that's the old thing. Okay, but actually Confucius was old, so we have to accept it. So that's 14. And my interpretation would be there's a hierarchy. Okay, this one is higher there. Okay, I see this is a different way to look at it, because one is wisdom or knowledge. That means your personal training. Okay, and second thing, talk about 人, that's your moral quality. Third thing, talk about attitude. The 庄, okay, your respectful, be dignified, and that's your attitude, or how you work, the attitude toward the people or toward the business. The last one is ritual, and even ritual is outdated, but we can consider that's a kind of the social norm. Let's put it this way. Okay, so we have to do. So that's the way I read it. Of course, Confucius is not Western philosopher who writes things in the structure and give you a critique. Everything is our interpretation. And when I do translation, I try to be honest what I read in the text. But instead of translate, I have to impose my own understanding of that. So that's the way. And that's why I totally understand Kwang talking about 知 and 智, and the 知 is on the lower level, 智 is the higher level. But I will say I don't read this way, because I see Confucius, the text has, during that time, not only Confucius, all the text has no 知 and 智. So that means they mess up, or they don't separate this concept. But of course, you read it and then you see they have the difference. That's why we translate have sometimes different, sometimes translate as wisdom, sometimes translate as knowledge, and sometimes I confuse. I think that's why I'm asking. which one sounds better, because that's all depend on your understanding. So it's common to have a different understanding. I don't see they have the consensus, in all these ancient texts.
Forgive me, can I interrupt 2 seconds, Jason? I have a question. In my mind, the paragraph 15.33 is crystal clear. Do you think that, according to you, in the paragraph 15.33, do you think that there is a difficulty in interpretation?
My question is, which word would be better for 知 or 智 in the first word? Should be wisdom or should be knowledge?
Okay.
That's my question.
Okay, but my hypothesis that if I read that again, if one's knowledge is adequate for it, but one does not possess the run needed to preserve it, though one gets it, one will surely lose it.
So you mean
means,
knowledge, not wisdom in this sense?
Well, because here, forgive me.
No, I need to pick one word.
I might be overbearingly confident, but sometimes I'm like that. But that paragraph is clear. If you don't have something that is superior, that is called run,
I know it's clear, but my question is just which word is better? I need a suggestion.
I suggest knowledge.
Okay, I kind of agree. Amon, how do you think?
Well,
I disagree. I think, Quan, you're demonstrating some presentism. This is the classic way that either 知 or 知 would be expressed in classic text. There wouldn't be the distinction for the mind of Confucius time, that you could talk about it as lesser or higher, but you would be using the same word whichever way you were expressing it. I am more inclined to think wisdom is the better choice because it is one of the cardinal virtues that people speak of when they speak about Confucian 知 yi ren li, the things that are sacrosanct within the Confucian framework, which was why when we worked on it, I saw wisdom. I think wisdom absolutely works. I dropped into the chat the formula, as it were. This is the formula that he gives: the 知 plus ren plus zhong plus li equals, it is now perfected. Because in verse 33, he says, this without this lacks this, this without this, but this plus this plus this plus this minus li, it is still not perfected. And so I do agree there's a hierarchy. I just think you have it in reverse order. The hierarchy is that wisdom is the highest.
Yes,
but wisdom
must
be bolstered by ren. And ren and wisdom must be bolstered by dignity. And those all are bolstered by li.
Yes, I agree with, I listened to Amon very attentively. I agree with him because it's true that the upper trigram is not, the fact that the three are in coordination. I accept your reasoning.
But I mean, I guess so. Just really quickly, so we can move on. I mean, I think that's really important here.
That's settle the disagreement here. Okay. So.
Yeah, and I think that
no. I agree with Amon because I'm impressed by his reasoning.
I liked it as well in the sense that wisdom captures everything that's underneath it. That's the important part, I think, is that then you can parse out what wisdom is underneath that. However, if you were to call it knowledge as we know it, knowledge is just applied information. It's knowing.
Yeah.
So the idea of knowing is just then, but the wisdom then actually incorporates everything. You know what? We're going to move on.
We need to move on.
We will discuss this. I promise. Afterwards, I promise.
No. Okay, you guys can discuss. Okay, but as a translator, I make my mind. I'm going to use wisdom because Amon remind me one thing important: consistency. Since Confucius doesn't make the distinction between these two words, so as long, and this word show over 100 times. So since I picked this word, I should keep considered because Confucius only write in the only one word. So I should not make two words.
But
Even if
Jason,
Okay,
not
okay.
the-
Okay,
you
we'll
have
come
you
back.
have two votes
Mark, we're
now
gonna
for
move
the
on.
wisdom.
So, okay, let's move on. So the next few that we will actually cover here are 35, 36, and 37. So 35, the master said, virtue is more to man than either water or fire. I have seen men die from treading on water and fire, but I have never seen a man die from treading the course of virtue. It's treading. I misspoke there. The master said, let every man consider virtue as what devolves on himself. He may not yield the performance of it even to his teacher. Number 37, the master said, the superior man is correctly firm and not firm merely. So we'll go with Quan.
The Eno, okay, the Eno translation, 15.35. The master said, run is of greater moment to the people than water or fire. I have seen people tread through water and fire and die. I have yet to see anyone tread through, run, and die. 15.36. The master said, when one acts with a run, one does not yield to one's teacher. 15.37. The master said, the Junzi is steadfast but not rigid.
Amon, are you ready?
I wasn't, I am now. Sorry. 35. The master said, people need the policy of Ren more than water and fire. Regarding water and fire, I have seen people die from fulfilling their need for them, but I have never seen anyone die from fulfilling their need for the policy of Ren. 36. The master said, when acting with Ren, you mustn't yield, even to your teacher. 37. The master said, a junzi sticks to the principle, not to the trivial promises.
Thank you, Amon. And then 30, let's do it, okay, reverse. Okay, 37. A Junzi sticks to the principle, not to trivial promises. Okay, liang, this word means small promise, right? I said I'm going to buy you a coffee, and then because I got COVID and I still buy you a coffee. So that's the small promise or trivial promise. So again, the logic here, right? That the Junzi stick to the principle, not to trivial promise. Then you can follow Confucius and a logic. You can add the second sentence. A small man stick to the trivial promises and not to the principle. So that's the logic it can work. But if you want to add the second sentence. 36, it becomes important. Okay, the words said that when acting with them, you should not yield even to your teacher. Common Chinese word become skip the teacher. Okay, you should, Confucius say you even should not yield to your teacher. And common word, Chinese will say, 当仁不让. That means when acting with them, you don't yield. Okay, skip the last part. That's become daily conversation. If something, say who want to read your own translation, and Joe will say, okay, let me read. So that means 当仁不让. When acting is 人, you must not yield. Okay, so great. 35 need a little bit explanation here because I read a few different translation and then none of them I agree because the words Dao here. Dao, first, the word Dao here. Dao means trade on, trading. Okay, that's correct. But in Chinese, this word also means following, fulfill. Okay, so if you translate as trade, it sounds very strange. If you step on fire and water, and you don't step on the ren, but it's the same word. So Amon give a good a suggestion, which is fulfill. And another thing, the word ren here, I do translate as policy of ren. Okay. So because here we don't know who is the audience, but Confucius used the word ren, means common people. So apparently Confucius is talking to the disciple who is working for the government. He has to deal with common people. That's why Confucius said people need the policy of ren even more than the water and the fire, right? We all know everybody needs water to drink, fire to cook. Then regarding water and the fire, I have seen people fulfill them, right? But die from them, right? People got burned, people got drowned, right? But I never seen anyone die from fulfill the policy of ren. If I follow the policy, if you do. So in this way, he is talking about as a government officer, right? You give people water and the fire. People might die from that. Okay, it's necessary, but people could die because fire and the water also dangerous. But for policy of ren, nobody died from that. It's all good. So please don't get confused with another chapter. I think on chapter 9, Confucius talk about as a shi, a learned person. You don't survive and the damage ren, you would rather sacrifice your life to achieve that, right? So here's the difference here. Does people die from ren or not, right? The common people, the people don't. People just follow ren and follow the policy of ren, or you say that impose the policy of ren to people. People will not die. But as a shi, who is a learned people or a junzi, if you face a choice, you need to choose ren over your own life. So I think that's the difference between people and shi or junzi or learned man. So that's I need to make it clear on 35. Yeah, thank you. Amon, please.
Thank you. I was a little slow getting to read this one because I was anticipating the conversation about Dao, which everywhere I've seen it translated as to tread or to tread on. And I agree with Jason. I agree that doesn't make a logical sense. It just always seemed a little too concrete, and realizing that in grammatical Chinese, you do not need to express that sort of object, their need for. You could simply say, die from fulfilling. Then it made very clear sense to me that, oh, we're talking about a policy argument here. And that's, I won't break these down one by one. I will say, though, I find it interesting that in these 3 verses, we start to see different spheres or what you'd hear called stasis of argument. We have a policy argument, we have a value argument, and then we have an argument in the sphere of the personal. And so 35 is a policy. What ought one do? 36 is a value. This is the value. Never yield it. Even to somebody under every other circumstance you should yield to. And also a policy, but a policy based on value. And 37 is in the personal sphere. It still has value to it, that they all are value laden, but these are different realms of argumentation that I find him not fulsomely sort of expressing, but it does seem to be sort of different tacks or different approaches to the same argument of value, the absolute paramount need of Ren. And even 37, though it doesn't mention Ren by name, to stick to your principle and not trivial promises, this is a re-expression of the idea of Ren, because it's saying you can break a promise if that promise is trivial, and what your principles are leading you to do is of a higher order if your principles are informed by Ren.
Very good. I like that a lot. Thank you, Amon, especially making the distinction how our principles guide our actions. Nick.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment on verse 36. This reminds me what Aristotle said about Plato. You know, I love my teacher, but I love truth more. And Confucius is saying something similar, not identical, but something similar.
Okay. Come on.
Just a short comment about 15.35. This paragraph reminds a lot the paragraph that we read maybe 2 weeks ago about the fact that the master said, enough, I have to see people loving virtue more than sex. Okay, so here it's exactly the same, okay, but expressed with more words.
So, Mark.
I was wondering about, of course, how it seems that at least Ren is unifying 35 and 36. I'm not sure that the word Ren figures into 37, but maybe. But what I really was struck by was the idea that if you're dealing with Ren, there doesn't seem to be a limit. It's not as if it's a mean between extremes, like you could have too much of it. And that seems to be going through 36 and also 37, because, you know, men can die, people can die from too much water, too much fire, too much heat. But we can't die, of course, from treading the course of Ren, but from too much of it, I think, is what it also could be implying.
Well, there's the Confucian golden mean, correct?
I would think so.
So, I mean, in a sense, there is this level, this balance that then exists. So I wouldn't say that there weren't limits per se. I don't know, Mon.
So I like Mark's question, and I wanted to address it just a little bit, because he's right. There is a thread here that connects, but what is a thread? The first conversation about Ren is that people need it. You need it more than fire and water, the fundamental elements of preserving your existence. This is more important. And so, once again, this is where Confucianism gets assaulted for not being good philosophy, because he never defines his terms, but that's a very Western chauvinistic sort of view and approach. Ren is a person with the number 2, And the very thing after that is that when you act with Ren, you don't yield to your teacher. It is easy to mistake loyalty to a person or fondness for a person as being Ren. And what he is saying here is Ren extends beyond the likes and don't likes of a given individual. So not to your teacher, not to people that you make trivial promises to. If you made a trivial promise, that's your own failing, but your principles should be endowed with Ren. So what is this thing that we are talking about? It is the humane human-heartedness orienting the self on the other. And it is universalizable. It is not a particular other. It is not a specific other because it is all others because all others are also humans. And you must take your actions in accord with that in mind, not your petty bias. And that's how you get all three of those sort of linked together.
Yeah, and I think Joe's right. I didn't describe it well because the Ren would be the result of some sort of mean. And you could never have too much of that mean.
You could misorient it. You could have too much
Right.
for this person, but not this person. And if it's universalizable, then no, you can't have too much, but you can misapply it, as it were.
To be off.
And does
Essentially, that's the whole point.
does 37 then qualify the whole thing? Because yes, you're supposed to connect with all of these virtues, Li, Ren, Zi, but you have to, in the end, be flexible because there's not going to be a particular rule that's going to be able to tell you what to do in any certain circumstance.
No, I think that it gets to the idea of principles that he's talking about a little bit earlier. Principles in particulars, essentially, where he's talking about essentially you got to follow your principles, not promises. So I think that it makes it contextual. So anyway, go ahead, Jason.
I think we have a few things here, which is okay. So first, the Marx comment on Ren has no limit. Okay, so or like Amon said, you can disoriented, okay, doing the wrong thing, but I think you quote it based on 36. Even you don't yield to your teacher. Okay, so something is Ren, you should do it. Okay, so it's no limit, or you can call it the highest virtue in this way, which I agree on this because not agree personally, but I agree that Confucius had this in his mind. That's why he talked about Ren as the highest one. Second thing, Joe connect with golden means, which okay, if it's the highest, then that's not golden mean, right? Because if there's no limit, there's no such thing as a golden mean. And Confucius does talk about what actually is his grandson. I try to think about, does Confucius talk about golden mean or not? Okay, but at least in his doctrine of the mean, which I think is written by his son, that is not like Aristotle talk about furnaces. You cannot be too brave. You have too much brave, become rashness. If not enough brave, become cowardice. So you should find the golden mean like this. And Confucius talk about doctrinal mean more on your emotional or your attitude when you got angry. Like you have to use the straightness to face the people who act unjust to you, right? You don't turn your cheek right? You don't just fight back. You have to, find the middle to do that. That's your attitude, your emotion control. The virtue which Ren probably has no golden mean on that. I will vote for Mark. The more the better, the higher the better.
Go ahead, Quan.
Here, I would like to say that maybe the last phrase, I have yet to see anyone tread through a run and die, might express one, a disappointment, and two, an expectation. In the sense that maybe because in Confucianism, let's not forget that Confucianism was for everyone, but let's be frank, it was first and foremost directed to the ruling class, okay, especially during Confucius' time. So the duty of the advisor is to express what he thinks, even if he knows that the kings or the ruler would not receive his advice because it would make him go in a direction that he doesn't wish to go. So the advisor is expected to put his life in danger, even if he has to advise a king that would not receive his advice. So here, he might have expressed a disappointment because he did not see any advisor, any worthy advisor during his time who would be willing to be in a dangerous position because he is doing his true duty, saying the truth to powers. That's one. And two, it was an expectation in general during Imperial China that for a person involved in politics, that to be a run precisely might imply that you might die because you will give an unwelcome advice. And I stop here.
So that is actually not a bad stopping point. Joy, actually.
Yeah, this is very special verses 1536. 子曰当仁不让于师. Okay, 当仁不让, that means we usually saying if you know the righteous things that you will just go ahead and do it. And I never know that is that yield to the teacher. I'm thinking if you have a competitor or like right now is election, you think you are the righteous person or the right person that to be the candidate, and you'll just go for the best shot. So there's many way that 当仁不让于师. That means so many things, especially in this society. If you know something right, you won't yield to maybe there's some bad people. They have threatened. They have very things for you to give up your principle or give up your the righteous thinking. So I like the forward. In my mind, I think 当仁不让 not only yield to the teacher, but yield to whoever right now we are facing the challenge, even our supervisor, even our coworker, even some people we don't really know, but they are doing something wrong, and we need to stick to the right thing that we need to really insist, to not to yield to anyone. So this is a very strong statement. In fact, in my mind before I read it, I say, okay, wow, this is a 当仁不让于师. That means only yield to the teacher. I don't think But nowadays, we use this word, this forward in Chinese language. We use a lot to, especially for the people that you are qualified for the official, or you are qualified for something that you need to be very bold, courage and the boldness that don't yield to the other. You need to take the stand and you need to take the action, to just do things right, just do whatever you think that you can make the people, society better. So I think it's a good learning. I think, yeah, maybe it can be elaborate and develop more. 当仁不让, not only yield to the teacher, but yield to what do you want to hold on to, and to stick to your principle. Is righteous and also is something that you think is benefit to the others. Also, yeah, that's what I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Next we'll go with Paul.
Yeah, regarding the water, and you can die with water or fire, but he's never seen someone die with Ren. I like to think of it differently, and I don't know if it helps if it's actually accurate with the translation, and it's different than the policy idea, which is the idea that as long as something is in that upper realm of unmanifest sort of wisdom that isn't come down into the physical realm, you make, like the philosopher makes jokes, well, you can't trip over a syllogism, like it's in that abstract realm. And actually, once it's a policy, it can kill people, because in the physical realm, the abstract never fully translates. So I'm interpreting it very differently because I kind of like that I just thought I'd put that into the mix. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. Are there any follow-up comments?
Well, I'd like to comment on Paul talking about, it's interesting to think about abstract, but I just want to make one comment about Confucius. I don't think Confucius had any concept of abstract. So everything is real. Okay, there's no abstract metaphysical thinking in his word. Okay, that's I will read when he talk about Ren and he talk about wisdom, or you want to call it knowledge. Okay, when he talk about dignity, he talk about the bravery, he talk about righteousness, he talk about a lot of things, nothing metaphysical. So only thing a little bit metaphysical would be ghost, afterlife. He said, no, we don't talk about this.
Okay, with that, we will go to our final section for book 15, which will be 38, was it 38, 39, 40, and 41. Actually, so we'll have 42 left. I don't know if
Do we have
numbers.
42? I don't think we have 42. Do we?
Yeah.
We do, but is it the same as, are we combining?
Already, okay, I forget. Okay, yeah, I have a 42. Okay, so let's leave 42 as last. Okay, so
Okay.
I can read.
Joy, yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay. 1538. The master say, in serving your ruler, you should be concerned about your service to him first. Your compensation for the work should be a secondary matter. 1539. The master say, in teaching people, there is no discrimination of class or type, etc. 1540. The master say, if your paths are different, you cannot make plans together. 1541. The master say, speak enough to make the point, and then leave it at that. I don't have 1542 though.
Yeah, we
Um,
read later. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, I can read it later, but
Okay.
you don't have 42. All right. Okay. Go on.
15.38, the master said, in serving a ruler, be attentive to affairs and consider salary a secondary matter. 15.39, the master said, there is a teaching. There are no divisions. 15.40, the master said, do not make plans together with others whose style differs from yours. 15.41, the master said, words should do no more than convey the idea. Do I read 15.42 too?
no.
No? Okay.
I keep forgetting I'm up. 1538. The master said, in serving a lord, respect the affairs and then consider the salary later. 1539. The master said, I teach all without distinction, i.e., regardless of background. 1540. The master said, those whose Taos are different cannot make the same plan. 1541. The master said, words, language, are for communication. That's all.
All right, thank you, Amon. I think 38 is simple, right? Basically talking about serving the Lord, 尽其事, okay, respect the affair, and consider the salary later. Right? I think we all know, even today, you tell your job, get a job, and talk about salary later. So, 39. There's a many different translations, but these words are very famous because that views Confucius' teaching idea. But I just like make it clear is the word he used is they. They means categorize, right? You categorize things. But if you read as categorize, that means do you teach science, math, philosophy, literature? You know, no, he doesn't talk about this. He has a distinction, okay, different teaching. But the category is do it on the social class, okay, classification, not the subject, on the people. So he will teach not only the ruling class, he also teach the common people. But again, I don't see Confucius is teaching common people for the sake of teaching, because he teach the common people, so the person get educated will become a government officer. So I think that's the way to look at. So in a way, sometimes we say Confucius is conservative. Yes, he always look back. The old time is good. But in a way, he is radical. He tried to break the social layer because but his social layer is not we lower the ruling class. He want to uplift the common people to the ruling class. So I think that's his teaching idea. 40, here I think since we are going to talk about 道德经, Dao, so here those who Dao are different cannot make the same play. So Dao is perfect to translate as the way, because Confucius see Dao as a way, a means to reach something, and you can guess to reach 人 or virtue. Different than Taoism. Taoism will see the Tao as the end, not the means. So in the Taoism text, Taoist text, if you translate Tao as a way, it could totally misleading. the author's meaning. But in Confucius text, if you translate the Tao as way, most of the time are correct because it's a means, not the end. Number 40, the master said the words or language are for communication. Da, I will translate as communication to reach the point. That's all. Okay, so important thing is you don't write a beautiful language just to show your skill. Okay, in Confucius' point of view, the purpose of language is a means to express or to teach it or do something, not for itself. That's all I have to say. Yeah, Amon, please.
I think that you did a great job with these. I really like Jason's translations because they're pithy, they're very succinct, and they sound like somebody taking notes. Yeah, 38, 39, I don't think there's a lot that needs to be said. We could get into the unique wordage in 1541, but I do think words are for communication. That's it. That's all. That sounds like a strong argument for the Confucian concept of the rectification of names, and that this idea of it's kind of ironic because Chinese as a written language has become an art form. Calligraphy can be done in just jaw-dropping beautiful manners, but this little quote would say Confucius really wouldn't approve of that. It's for communication. That's it. That's what it's for. Don't gussy it up. Don't fancy it up for anyone's sake. As far as the polemics of Dao goes, Jason's right. We're gonna launch into the Dao Te Ching in the new year, and they're using the term Dao with a very different polemic. As I mentioned once before, this is kind of like how terms like freedom or justice can be conscripted by different people to have very different connotations, even though they are nominally speaking of the same thing. So when Confucius and the Taoists are speaking about the Tao, they're talking about a path, a way, or a discourse or dialogue, but they have very different conceptions of it. I like that this actually makes that distinction really clear with a simple lowercasing of the word Tao, because when you're talking about specific Tao, which is something Confucius will do more often than the Taoists will do, that the way to this versus the way to that, indicating that they're just different paths. Whereas when we see the Tao written in the Tao Te Ching, it's almost always going to be capitalized because it is the Tao. All caps, no hashtag. Anyway, I'm curious to see what everyone has to say. Are we going to tackle 42 or are we going to save that for the lead off of next week?
I think we are going to finish 42. Yeah. Because this is
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I mean
or we want to start from 42. After Nick, we can start the 42 and then we can finish.
sure. I mean, go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I just want to comment on 39. A few weeks ago, I think there was a question whether Confucius was egalitarian or hierarchical as Plato when Plato set up the Republic, the guardians, the training of guardians, etc. And this word 39 is a clear indication that Confucius is a mixture. I mean, his theory eventually is very hierarchical. Different classes of the society behaving according to its position in the society, etc., very hierarchical. But here, on the entry point into the education, he's very egalitarian. He's saying, look, whoever comes, I'll teach you the way to be. And obviously, if you're successful, if you're smart enough to get it, then you go on to perform the duties to the states, to the country, whatever. So this is a, and I don't recall whether Plato had a similar thinking that on the entry point, it's very egalitarian. So it's like what they often say about the current university system. They get those people in, but it's tough to graduate them. But on the entry selection, everybody can get in.
I mean, I think that's a good good thing to pick up on. Confucius does talk about this earlier in the Analects, when he talks about students that will just give something like a piece of meat, I believe it was, or something along those lines, in order to be taught. Like, in other words, just everybody was very entitled. He'll teach you as long as you're willing. Is there some willingness to go along with that? So this is consistent with other passages as well. I find the one with language to be a little bit deeper because, but we can come back to that later. Quan.
I would suggest that Plato also had an open mind concerning the entry point, because if you remember the dialogue called Meno, he was asking question to a slave boy who performed and who was successful in a geometric demonstration, and thus ridiculing the owner of the slave, Meno, the guy who gave the name to the dialogue. So it is a small clue that Plato was open-minded to accept everyone within what I call the open aristocratic oligarchy. Okay, both men believe in excellence, meaning that you have to perform, you have to be among the best. But both men, in my mind, were willing to accept everyone from every walks of life as long as they are capable to perform.
Yeah, I won't go into something.
That's actually a perfect lead into 42.
Okay, yeah, let's make that move. Joy, would you like to read again or not?
Do you have 42?
Oh yeah, do you have 42?
I don't have. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, 42 is a little bit different than most of in this book. So that's why I almost forget.
Sure. The music master, Mien, having called upon him, when they came to the steps, the master said, "Here are the steps." When they came to the mat for guests to sit upon, he said, "Here is the mat." When all were seated, the master informed him, saying, "So and so is here. So and so is here." The music master, Mian, having gone out, Zi Zhang, and I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, asked, saying, "Is it the rule to tell those things to the music master?" The master said, "Yes, this is certainly the rule for those who lead the blind."
Okay, do I read the Eno's translation?
Please.
Okay, 15.42. Music master Mien came to visit. When he reached the step, the master said, "Here are the steps." When he reached the mat, the master said, "Here is the mat." When all were seated, the master said to him, "So and so is here, so and so is there." After music master Mian left, Zhu Chang asked, "Is that the Tao for speaking to a music master?" The master said, "Yes, it is indeed the Tao of assisting a music master."
Okay, I'm on it this time. Finally, 1542. The blind musician Mian visited. When he approached the steps, the master said, "Here are the steps." When he approached the mat, the master said, "Here is the mat." When all were seated, the master told him, "Someone is here, someone is there." After musician Mian left, Zhejiang asked, "Is this the Tao of talking to a musician?" The master said, "Yes, this is indeed the Tao of assisting the musician."
Thank you, Amon. I think this one, I just insert the word blind, okay? Because during that time, musician usually is blind. And the second, the musician, the social ranking is low. So that's why Zhang asked this question, right? Is that's the way or the Tao? He used again, 是言之道语. Okay, so talk about is that's the Tao talking to a musician who is low ranking, because it sounds like Confucius is like, oh, here's step, sit here, introduce, this is Zhang, this is Zhigong, this is Amon, you know, all this kind of thing, and then walk him out. So the reason is he is blind. So that's the way to treat a blind musician. So I think that's the essence. So so I think if you know the musician is blind, then would be easier to understand the whole paragraph. Yeah, Amon, please.
I really like this. This is probably one of my favorite little vignettes, because this is an encapsulation of all the lessons that we've been given about wisdom, about acting with Ren, about not giving preference or privilege to one over another. That Mian would be blind is absolutely accurate. It was one of the very few occupations someone who was blind in ancient China could do, and therefore almost, I shouldn't say almost, but many people who were blind, this was a job given to you. You will learn to play an instrument, you will learn to play music. And it wasn't prestigious. But it's funny because the name Mian, the actual word Mian, translates as crown. It's about as prestigious as something can be. So there's a little bit of fun wordplay here, I think, but that you take into consideration the actual person in front of you and you defer to what would be the humane thing to do. You don't let them trip on the step because they're blind. You don't let them miss their seat when they're sitting down. You let them know who's sitting around them. He's being considerate, thoughtful, not just in sort of the blasé sense of be thoughtful and considerate, but be truly thoughtful. This man is navigating his world in this condition. How can I make it as pleasant, as frictionless an experience for him to be here visiting me as I can? It's really kind of funny that in some ways Confucius actually reminds me of what do they call that? Southern women go to it all the time. Somebody help me out here. There's some sort of schooling that you're supposed to do that is I'm blanking on
finishing school.
Finishing school, or you know, lessons in cordiality. And what I actually heard somebody say is what makes somebody a gracious host isn't a knowledge of which spoon goes by what. It's how they can make somebody who doesn't feel comfortable at a gathering feel like they're truly wanted and appreciated there. That is the most Ren thing to probably come out of Southern debutante balls that I could even imagine, because it is to be thinking of the other regardless of position, privilege, or anything else. And I think this is a nice little encapsulation of here's how a junsa should behave, even if Confucius would not call himself a junsa. This is the behavior that a junsa should have.
Yeah, I think that that's very well said. It's not just telling people what to do per se. It's kind of actually thinking about the other person. So, Jason.
Yeah, I like this last one, and then the reason is different tone than others. And when I read it, it kind of use a few simple words to describe Confucius' daily behavior. Okay, it's real. Let me feel, that's a real person, and that's a person doing this. So that's why that's the reason I like it. So here are the future Confucians. So
Now, is this one of your students, Amon?
Oh no, he's way too smart for me.
usually
Are you one of his students that I should ask? So, are there any other comments with verse 42? Well, we finished it.
yeah, we finished.
15.
So
Do you?
So let's
Jason or
argue
Amon,
about
do you have-
wisdom.
I'm waiting for that conversation, but there is fundamentally a really important point here. It's how you're approaching translation in general, right?
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
I think
that's the interesting point, and that's why I thought it would be worthwhile to kind of engage in that, and to say that. And I was just thinking logically. I'm not somebody who does translations, but I'm just thinking in sense of if there are multiple concepts under being expressed, that you would want the word that probably captures all those concepts, and then you can kind of parse out from there what was meant within a particular situation. So what I'm saying is that you could look at it almost as if you're coming up with some principle, and that everything underneath it, then you can parse out what it is. So the highest order, I mean, that's just a thought. I have not done translations, so I would defer to obviously Amon and Jason in this, but that's just a logical thought.
There's no translation without interpretation. It is impossible because, and I was actually saying this just the other day, there is no one-to-one equivalency. There's no dictionary
Right.
where you just look
Absolutely.
up and find that word means that word, because each culture comes up with its language in its own unique context and its own specific little idiosyncrasies. Yeah, that's right. So, figuring it out, you're balancing two responsibilities: being faithful to the original text and being faithful to the target reader.
yeah, I'm absolutely right. To me, it's really a challenge because from time to time, Amon will remind me, let's keep the ambiguity here, because I will have the reader to figure out, because the original text doesn't make it clear, so I should not make it clear. That means too much interpretation on that. So that's also important. The biggest challenge here is Confucius, right? That all the text is in the ancient archaic tone. Okay, so to me, important is reflect the tone. Okay, is Confucius just be funny? No, he never be funny. But he speak lightly, or he speak seriously, or he is feels sad. So this kind of tone you can read from the text, but I don't want this part lost during the translation. That's a lot. And again, I keep always say Chinese write 10 words. I should translate English no more than 20 words. I cannot write whole paragraph for one sentence. That's all the challenge I have.
Just as
We had a similar. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, unless somebody else wants to jump in, just as one concrete example of this, I respect Jason's choice to retain certain Chinese terms and refuse to translate them, because many, as we've heard many times, you'll get different iterations for ren, for rich, or for li, and they reduce them somewhat when they try and say that ren is,
Yes.
perfection or virtue, or they say the junzi is the perfect man. It takes away the fact that this is a sui geniously unique word to this language that has so much meaning that, like Jason said, not to write 20 words to express one. Sometimes that means keeping the Chinese, and it means imploring the reader. This is important enough that you should be doing your homework. You're going to have to explore this in some additional text, because I'm not going to feed it to you in a poor English approximation. Wow, that was my soapbox moment. I'm going to shut up and let everyone else talk now.
I mean, we actually had a similar situation with heaven, I remember, in the Tao. We kept on coming up. We had difficulties with coming up with a word that was actually captured what the Tao meant by heaven, and what the English word heaven means. That there was no really good translation. So I remember having a pretty lengthy discussion about that. So sometimes words aren't one-to-one, obviously not sometimes, but just a quick question for Amanda. So you're saying that you wouldn't want to keep using the word junzi or li because it would cheapen its value, in the sense that if we're so you could use it in or a junzi in multiple circumstances, right? Because they do all things well. Then when would you use it? What would be the rule to use it if you wouldn't use it regularly?
I'm sorry,
So,
I'm a little confused.
So like you were saying, you would use junzi often, essentially.
Regularly. Jason's choice
Right.
to retain that word
Okay.
means that it's the responsibility of the reader. We give you some indication, but then we stop translating it into a poor English approximation.
Okay.
And hopefully, even if the reader doesn't do the homework of saying, here's a word I've never heard of before, but they told me that it means, gentleman or perfected man or whatever it is in the parentheses, that's in the back of their head. But then as they read, they're putting the word junzi every time. And eventually you stop doing that translation. You start seeing it in context. Qian was the word that you were talking about for heaven or skies, or I'm very fond of the heavens, as in sort of that which is above you, because it's both celestial and concrete. But give you a very specific example, probably no text has more weighted language than the Bible. When the Bible was first translated into Chinese, and that infamous opening text, in the beginning was the Logos. Logos gets translated to the word in English, and in Chinese it was in the beginning was the Dao, because that was the only weighted word they could find. They could have picked several zi, yan. They could have picked many other words to indicate word, but they wanted something with as much gravitas and as much sort of built-in generational connotation that would mean the same thing. Those are translators whose entire lives are spent doing just that sort of single translation. I don't think we're doing Shuizong, translation here, or any Jesuit priest, but there is the same sort of consideration of, okay, here's a word that in English is going to make people think this. So although we're being faithful using it, is there a way to twist it, put it on its nose, some way to get the reader to understand this doesn't mean what you think it means. It doesn't mean exactly what you think it means. It's just an approximation. The Chinese means its own thing. Tian means tian. I say heavens or celestial or sky, but it means tian. It is its own thing that we kind of have to struggle with English words to come up with some sort of conceptualization of it. Junzi, same thing. Perfected person, perfect gentleman, the genteel gentleman, or my personal favorite, the lettered bachelor. These are ways of conceiving of this idea that don't mean the same thing, but they give me lots of sort of ideas orbiting around. Again, I want to shut up. I want to hear your idea.
Let me add a little bit on translation, because I probably can talk about 3-4 hours only on translation, because for this since 2021, I work on that, and my mind has been thinking about translation probably all the time. Whenever I read the Chinese or read English, I'm thinking about translation. So I will make it short. The choice of keep the Chinese word on that 君子, 人, 礼, or 孝. Okay. First, I don't want this word only show in the text 3 times. Okay. I will make sure it show up many, many times. Okay. That makes sense. Secondly, I want the reason of these words I kept the original Chinese, because Confucius text is defining this text, this meaning, defining what's 君子, defining what's 孝, defining what's德, and defining what, there's many things Confucius is defining. But again, I cannot have too many, right? Because I have to choose some of them, not all of them. And sometimes I'm lazy. At the beginning, I decide to not translate, but to the late, I decide to translate. So I have to go back to change everything. That's a lot of work. So sometimes a little bit inconsistent, but but anyway, that's the way to do it. And heaven, Tian is a very good example. Ideally, probably should translate as Tian, but unfortunately, this word has been used as heaven for most of text. Another thing like Confucius, right? If I change to 孔子, okay, that would be, I don't know, there will be a little bit strange. So I sometimes become a common name. So let's just keep, when they say Confucius, that that's him. So that's the way to do. Nothing perfect, but I try. So
Thank you, Jason. Mark.
I wanted to thank Jason and Amon for their joint work, as the translation perfectly and elegantly emphasizes what we just read, that words are for communication. And a couple of other related things. I also think it's great when you leave the words, certain key terms, untranslated. But I don't know, Jason, if I would agree that Confucius is defining these, because definition is a word that doesn't really seem to show up very much in the Analects, but he's characterizing them through these vignettes and these images and these contexts, like Joe would say, hopefully. And that way we're building up a picture, like a layer You know, like the way those 3D printers print one layer and then another layer and then another layer, and all these things contribute to building up a 3 or 4 dimensional image of what these concepts are. My other question about translation is, and Amon, I almost thought you were going to say this when you talked about the translation of the Bible, but not into Chinese. The translation of the Bible into the Septuagint, the earliest, let's say, translation from the Hebrew into the Greek, we can go back and use the Septuagint and say, if the Greeks were translating such and such a Hebrew word by such and such a Greek word, what does that tell us about their understanding of the Hebrew word, for example? So is there an analogy, is there an analog where we can look at what was a very early translation of Confucius into Japanese or Sanskrit or some other thing that we can rely on that has some historical depth to it?
You'd be hard pressed, because any scholar worth their salt for 2,000 years would only write in Chinese. That was the only respected way to understand it. I think you could probably find some Korean and Japanese versions in existence, but they're the exception. Probably the best, like, of a time is the earliest English translation, the James Legge, which is why I always appreciate when somebody reads it, has some very interesting choices made that tell you about where the thinker was at that time. I've got a shouts at my door who's knocking and whining, so apparently not just words, but the sound actually is meant for communication too. Absolutely. I look forward to seeing everybody. I've got to run.
Okay, so next week we have a special section for the review.
Yes. And somebody tell me what Michael said, because I haven't heard a comment from you all night long, and I wish I could stick around for it.
So I forget what I need to say, but basically, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, you're on mute, Michael.
My apologies. I think you should hear me now.
A little bit, yeah. You're a little low.
Okay.
There we go.
So I'm thinking about the word wisdom. And within philosophical systems, I think wisdom does take on different meanings. Like, say, within a deontological ethic, you would think about wisdom in a particular way, versus virtue ethics, you would think about wisdom in yet a different way. And so the question really to me is this: I look at Confucianism, and I don't think it's either or deontological or virtue ethics. It's some type of combination of these things in some greater way, at least as far as I can tell, at least, you know, as far as my initial impression. So the question is, does wisdom mean something different in Confucianism than it means in virtue ethics or a deontological ethic? Does it take on its own separate character based on, you know, the philosophy of Confucianism, separate from what we typically associate with its meaning in different types of, you know, if you will, Western ethical systems? Just curious about them.
Okay, let me quickly respond to Michael's point of view. I'm not going to talk about wisdom or these words, the meaning, or it's a big subject. Okay, so we call the epistemology. Okay, that's the whole 1/3 of the philosophy. Let's put it this way. Okay, talk about epistemology. So I just talk about the translation point of view. In Confucius text, that word 知 used for wisdom, for knowledge, for knowing, recognizing. Okay, that's all the same words. So I don't want to use, I try not to use many different words for many different situations. I try to pick the word. So for example, just like doesn't matter he meant wisdom or knowledge. I always translate as wisdom. Okay. And sometimes I cannot do wisdom because he said people don't know me. I cannot say people don't wisdom me. I have to translate people don't know me. So this word also the same word, right? So so that you can see this word has been used for many different places. Remember, Chinese has no alphabetary, so even have so many words, but you got to have one word for many meanings. So that's the difficult part. Okay, so I will leave the epistemological issue of the wisdom aside, but only talk about translation point of view. Another thing, like quickly respond to Mark, talk about the early translation to Japanese and the Korean. There's no translation. They just read the Chinese character. So the smart people read the Chinese. So if you are well educated, even I remember not long ago, probably 20 years ago, I went to Korea, and in the bookstore, they sell Analects, okay? And I read it, it's totally in Chinese, okay? So original text in Chinese. So that's the way they assume you read it in Chinese, just like probably in the 15th, 16th century in Europe, you assume you read Latin if you want to study. Okay, so I think that's it. And then next week, we will have just figure out what subject, what verses you want to talk about, and come up with some broader discussion. You could last 5 hours or just 15 minutes. We don't know. Okay. Thank you.
So, no, just briefly, I mean, Michael, I think actually that was an interesting question, because what is wise under one system may not be wise under another. However, at